Hi, I'm Dara, and this is A Right Way. So, today we're going to dive into the process of outlining. And this is a little bit controversial because some people like to just get into their script and start writing and not worry about planning everything out to the detail, while other writers choose to outline. I've seen outlines that can be, 15, 20 pages long that really highlight each and every moment that's key in the story and line out all of the details. So it's really a personal preference which way you want to go on this. I am a big believer in coming up with some kind of basic outline before you start a script. But there are times when I like to live a little and just dive on in. It's almost like cooking with a recipe versus like cooking off the top of your head. That's one analogy, but to me, especially working as a professional writer, that outline is essential because oftentimes the first step to actually working on a professional project when you get greenlit is going through the process and making sure that everybody is on board with the outline before you go to the script phase. So let's go through that process together. I'm going to share my screen. So here I have this blank page for the outline, and I also have a tab open with the brainstorm where the general premise and the log line is here for the story about the senior citizens. And I have my three characters so I can kind of reference back and forth as needed, but I want to lean into this. And once again, for this particular project, I haven't even come up with a title yet. Sometimes titles are tricky and I get around to that last. So let's go into the outline and start to give some thought to how we can help shape this story. So I'm going to begin by just kind of copying and pasting the log line into the outline so that I have that as a reference point. And now we're going to just create a couple of bullet points that highlight a few scenes for this short film. So the opening scene will establish where we are. So we're going to need an exterior. Sometimes I go into details like this of a senior citizens building. And you can have something that happens outside of the building that sets the stage for what we're getting into on the inside of the building. So for example, what if there are a handful of seniors outside gossiping? This will set the tone for where we are and what's going on without necessarily even showing any dialogue. You can just show them chatting and laughing. You can use your imagination on what they might be saying. Now let's go inside of the building, and it's a critical time. Let's say it's, either a meal time or some people playing cards or some kind of group activity in the main hall. So I'm thinking interior, main hall, and we have our three characters. So imagine if we have three characters. So we have like a love triangle. We got Calvin, Frida, and Jessica. So Calvin is a little bit of a player here because he's kind of courting both of these ladies, and we have to find a way to show how that plays out. So this is just an outline I'm coming up with off the top of my head. And we can start off by showing Jessica plays cards with friends at a table, and let's have Frida enters and Jessica gives her the side eye. Very basic. So the two women are in a stare down contest. We haven't even had any dialogue play out right now. We're just kind of letting these dynamics go. When we get to script phase, we may decide to add some dialogue here, but this is super basic. All right, so Calvin is in his room getting dressed. And let's say Calvin is super stylish. So, he's one of those kind of old school, really cool guys that dresses well all the time. So he's getting dressed to the nines because he wants to impress both of his ladies. He still can't make up his mind about that, but he knows style. And his phone, he gets a text message on his phone from Jessica asking if he plans to come downstairs. Now, oftentimes when it comes to these types of scenes, we don't want to give away all of the secret sauce. We don't have to show what his reply is going to be or how he's going to carry it, but we'll just leave it like that to let the audience wonder for a moment. Now let's move on to the next scene. Let's say the pudding is served to seniors in the main hall. Tensions rise between Frida and Jessica. So they continue to like glare at each other, and maybe there's, a moment where they're like Frida's talking to her friends. We'll troubleshoot that some more. And they're kind of sizing each other up. And remember, by now, Jessica is seated at a table with her friends. So Calvin enters, and both women glare at him, or let's make it a little more lighthearted. Both women smile flirtatiously at him, hopeful he will join them at their table. Okay, so this is a moment where, we have the, fallout here of wondering what Calvin is going to do. And then he walks past both of their tables to sit next to, we'll decide. Sometimes I like to just play with that, but I want to make it to where both women are rejected. So he walks past both of their tables to sit next to someone else. And sometimes I'll put to be decided, because when you get to script phase, you can troubleshoot it some more. Okay. And Frida and Jessica, are downhearted, but maybe Frida or Jessica makes her way over to Frida's table, and the two women bond in shock over who Calvin sits next to. All right, this is a short film, so that's pretty much the end. All right, so we have a very basic outline, a framework here to give us an idea of what can happen in each scene. When we get to the scripted phase, we can, turn up the tension and turn up the conflict a little bit more, turn up the comedy, and really mine out those moments. But having some type of framework from the outline gives us a lot to go on, so that we're not just entering into this process without anything at all. So I like to think of the outline as kind of like a comfort blanket. It gives you a little something so you're not out there in the cold by yourself. And now it's time to actually go out into the elements and see what we can do with this and take it from outline to script. I hope that this was helpful, and no matter what you do, keep on writing. Thanks for watching.